Baby, if you've got to go away.
Hello, I am Duncan Friedberg. I'm a student at Salford University, and I have been creating a game to show off the Oculus Spatializer and to delve into the games industry. Here you can see my game. So the game comprises of two different locations, the front room and the back room. Each have a different reverberation pattern, and I'll go into a bit of detail on how I created those a tiny bit later. But first of all, I am going to go in on the player model. This is what we use to connect to the Oculus headset. So within this player model, we've got both the left and the right hand. Those are for your left and your right controllers. These get mapped to the Oculus through the integration toolkit, along with all of the XR integration code. I can change the move distance, the height of the unit. I found a sweet spot for where it is currently, because it meant that you didn't feel too small in the space, but then at the same time, I want you to feel quite small. It's meant to feel like you're in this vast warehouse, and the whole point is you're meant to feel a bit small. The locomotion scene manager basically is how we can choose exactly how a person is going to move. I went for non-continuous, and within this game, teleportation is used to travel around the map. I didn't want continuous movement. I wanted it basically you jump in between where I want the player to be. The player can move their head around, can look, but to turn, it will snap to turn around instead of just a continuous scroll. The reason I went for this is so that I can control exactly what's happening at all times. So when you've got the Oculus on, you will still be able to move your head continuously and have no issues. But when it comes to moving the whole body around, I wanted it that it would snap. It was completely just my choice. I just when I play VR games, I like it to snap instead of being able to continuously move, because then you know that you're never going to get lost whilst moving randomly in space and time. Let's move on, shall we? Let's move on to my beautiful building, as you can see. So this is the first room over here. These rooms are made up of planes, which I've added a wood effect to. The wood effect was found online. It was an open asset. I modified it slightly just to change the colors a tiny bit, just to make it a bit lighter. I was going for a mixture between a Victorian warehouse and a bit of a modern warehouse. So it wasn't so dark that it was the dark and dingy Victorian, but then at the same time it's not the modernistic, just concrete everywhere. I really like the idea of wood, and especially dropping something on wood, and the fact that wood does absorb a tiny bit of sound. where concrete basically just disperses it all. I quite enjoyed the fact that I can play around and add some absorption to the floor. So when you drop something, you should hear that tiny bit of absorption in comparison to if I just had concrete everywhere. The walls are bricks. They were also assets I found. These walls also, I wanted bricks because the whole point of bricks is that they are all uneven, so they will just spread sound all over. There is no uniformity in where the sound will go, and that should also create some interesting effects when listening over headphones binaurally. As you can see here, this is one of my teleportation anchors. I've not gone for the whole idea of having teleportation pads everywhere, because then that would remove the whole point of teleportation anchors. The whole point of them is that I control where the player goes. They can't go anywhere. They go where I want them to go. And I want people to go to specific parts within the map because that's where there's interactables. I don't want them going into a corner and just nothing happens because it's a bit boring. You go where I want you to go. That sounds a bit sadistic and a bit, I control the universe, but no, it's just a thing. So I've got loads of these teleportation anchors everywhere that there's an event. But in this main room, there are two major events happening. I've got a droppable bowl, and then I've got a controllable toggle radio. Now, the way that I created the toggle radio was I created the radio out of cylinders and cubes. As you would have seen in gameplay, it looks brilliant in my opinion. Definitely not biased there. I then have a left and a right. This is to create the stereo, and this is all based off the fact that I use a timeline for this. So there, you may or may not have seen the flashing light. So there is a light that flashes on the radio to tell you that it is playing. So the toggle was literally just a toggle. So basically, when you click the on, it will play. Play it through the playable director.play function, and that will connect to the timeline and say, yes, timeline, please start. And then the opposite is with off. It will pause exactly where that timeline was up to. So think of in Pro Tools, you've got your player head moving along when you press play, and then you stop. And then unless you've got it, that player head returns before play, and it follows where you were, it will just stop randomly. A bit like another example is playing music on Spotify or Apple Music. When you press play and then you stop it again, it'll pause exactly where you were until you resume that play. So the timeline itself, I will quickly get up just to show you what the timelines look like. So this is the timeline. So the timeline has the activation. So this basically is for the light. So it basically, the light is on, the light is off, the light is on, the light is off, on, off, yada yada yada. And you've got the right and the left track of the music. For this, I had to put the song into Pro Tools to split the track into two mono, one for left and one for right. If we get to the very end, what will happen is it'll loop again and again and again and again and again and again, and it'll just carry on and on and on and on and on. It will get tedious and boring. But hey, if you want to, you want to. It's entirely up to the person. If you just want to listen to Buble feeling good on loop, go ahead and do that. So the next item within this first room is the bowl. So this bowl has it's got everything you would expect. It's a rigid body, got a mesh collider, mesh renderer, of course, because at the end of the day we have to render the mesh and then add our material on top of it to make it look like a bowl and not just a random disc, which we all love. You've got to love just random discs. So we've got, the mesh render, but then we have an audio source where I have put the spatial blend to 3D. All items have their spatial blend all the way up. This basically turns them from just a 2D audio all the way through to a 3D audio. I don't really have to tell you what the point of that is. Of course, we want it to be 3D. We're trying to spatialize the audio around the player. So I then created this script. The whole point of the script is to randomly select between the two impact sounds that I have. It's called Coffee Mug. The reason it's called Coffee Mug is for the fact that I originally did have a coffee mug, but then I thought the bowl it looks better. The personal preference. I wasn't a big fan of what the coffee mug looked like. It was very monotone, very boring. So I thought I'll just change it over to bowl. It's then got the XR grab interactable script. This basically changes it from just a standard object that's there, that if I had it up here, it will just drop to the floor, to something that the player unit can pick up. And I'll show you that happening now. So that's the first room. We now move on to the second room. Yeah, I know, we're in the second room. How amazing. Basically, I've got this this teleportation plane here, which will just get people to be able to reach for this teleportation plane. And then there's this teleportation plane, and that's all I want. Anywhere I want. Don't want you to go anywhere else in this room. Just for the reason that there's no reason for you to go to here. There's no need. You don't need to go there. Because my two audio objects in here are another speaker, and then I've got the fan. Now the fan is, I am sad to tell you, I had to find an object online for this. I couldn't find one that there was no way I was making this. I'm good. I'm not that good. So yeah, this was an asset I found online, which I then added a audio source into the middle of it. It has the beautiful fan noise, along with Spatialize switched on, which will then send it through the Oculus Spatializer. I've got it to play and awake, and it will constantly loop. The whole reason is, of course, the fan is constantly going. So you want it to loop. It's not just magically going to stop halfway through unless someone switches it off. I haven't enabled that because I like the idea that if you go to the likes of a warehouse, there will be there'll be air ducts all over with the fans constantly going, so it's always in the background. So yeah, constantly going. It also has the Oculus Spatializer audio source script there, literally just make sure that it does 100% go through the Oculus Spatializer, which then creates the binaural effect for the whole game. So this is a very important part of the script. Along with a logarithmic roll-off. Of course, as you go into this room and you go further away, you're not going to hear it as much, so it should roll off, and it's going to be pretty linear because it is right by the hole between the two rooms, so it's a linear roll-off. There's not much I have to say about that. This speaker I am very, very proud of. It's a speaker, and the whole point of the speaker is to play music. Yes, more than that. The speaker, the whole thing about this speaker is that it is a very small speaker, so it rolls off incredibly quickly. It's tiny. It's got one little audio source on it, so you can't blame it. It also, of course, goes through the Oculus Spatializer. It is also a grabbable item, if I can find it somewhere. There we go. Grabbable item. Like the bowl, you pick it up, you can drop it, you can chuck it, you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can have great fun. And it's got impact sounds. Now, I got it that every time you drop it, the pitch and or speed of the track playing should change. The whole point of that is if you're going to drop a speaker, it's going to start breaking, and that can cause, it can cause the speaker to go pretty much haywire. You can damage the driver. You could even completely break the driver. And if that's happening, you're going to hear pitch changes and possibly speed changes if you're starting to mess around with the speaker's motherboard, and you don't really want that. But when you drop it, things are going to start going wrong with it. So over time, the pitch and speed will change, and every now and again when you drop it, it'll go completely back to normal. That is just a bit of fun. At the end of the day, there's this old saying, oh, your computer or speaker not working correctly? Kick it or drop it. It'll start working then. I wanted to play into that bit of stereotype. It's just a bit of fun. But yeah, it's got the two impact sounds, which in this room, you shouldn't hear that loudly. The whole point is I've got these These are acoustic treatment tiles. I put them in here so you could hear a difference between the two rooms. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to show you that I can control reverberation and absorption within my game. And the way I did this is through the ONSP propagation system. So that's the Oculus propagation. What it basically means is I can control exactly how how an object will absorb sound, scatter sound, and transmit sound. So of course for my acoustic panels, I want the absorption completely dialed up to 11. The whole point is that they absorb everything, low, mid, high frequencies, no matter what they're absorbing. They may scatter a tiny bit because at the end of the day, no tiles are perfect. And transmission, with these, I was going for a bit that they're more to stop their higher frequency, so they will transmit a tiny bit of low frequency, and that's why if you see under the absorption, you can see quite clearly that mid to high frequencies it absorbs a bit more. Going back to the floor, wood is very much known for absorbing lower frequencies. So my whole thing was that I got it basically boosted its absorption in the lower frequencies, sub 100 hertz, and it starts rolling off exponentially all the way up to the 10 kilohertz onwards. However, scattering wise, it will scatter those 10 kilohertz to around about 2 kilohertz to 10 kilohertz. In between there, it's going to scatter, and transmission, it will transmit the lower frequencies. So if you think, yes, they absorb, but if you are in an apartment block and it's wood floors everywhere, you're in this old apartment block, the people walking ahead above you, people in the flat above you, you're gonna hear their stomping, and any music or speech, you're gonna hear the lower frequencies of that coming through the floorboards. So I wanted to replicate that. It's all a one level game, so it doesn't really, you won't hear it, but it gives me the option for future, that the fact it is there, I can do whatever I want with it. I can add a basement level, I could even move this up and make it a first floor and add a ground floor. So yeah, then the walls. So you've got exterior and the interior walls, they are all the exact same. The whole reason is, you look at Victorian buildings, all their walls are thick, load-bearing walls. They are literally the same no matter where you are. So the whole thing here is, they are the exact same propagation. The interior walls, not that much absorption, a lot of scattering, especially at the higher frequencies. And yeah, the exterior walls, exactly the same. They should be the same. And then the roof is metal. Solid metal. Well, it's metal sheets, but it's just a metal roof. There will be no absorption. There will be basically the same scattering for all sounds, but it's very smooth, so it's not gonna that much. And transmission wise, you're gonna hear everything that's hitting it. no matter what. I'm very much in the lower frequencies, so that's where you can see under the transmission, the lower frequencies are very much boosted. So all over, you have got these lights. These are basically just to look nice. I just wanted loads of sounds, loads of lights everywhere, because you've basically gone into this abandoned warehouse kind of thing, and you've put up these lights so you can see what you're doing. So I've got 2 reflection zones. These kind of get cancelled out by propagation. However, because I've got this massive hole between the 2 rooms, there is going to be a part where the propagation will kind of stop working, because there is that massive gap in the walls. So it was always good to just keep the reflection zones. The reflection zones are main room and the back room. They connect to the spatializer and are 2 snapshots. Basically, if you're in the main room, the audio from the radio here is going to sound louder than in the back room. The fan noise will also be louder in the back room than in the front room. And because that back room speaker is so small, when you're in the main room, you're going to hear none of it. But when you're in the back room, you're going to hear it. Along with the radio, when you're in the main room, it's got the high pass and low pass just to make it sound like a radio. However, when you're in the back room, you will hear more of the lower frequencies than the higher frequencies, because it has to go through the wall. Yes, you've got it coming through the gap in between the rooms, but that will be pretty negligible. If you stood over here, you're gonna hear a lot of the lower frequencies. When it comes to bed audio, it had to be similar in both rooms. You had to hear it exactly. So yes, the bed audio is this unit over here. It is a Ambisonics audio source, as you will hear when I've shown you things on the gameplay. Of course, it has to be spatialized, constant looping and constantly playing. Basically, this piece of script just tells the spatializer that this is an Ambisonics piece, which will then mean it can be decoded properly to headphones for the binaural, so it will feel like you're surrounded by this bed audio at all times. Along with the fact that you've got a metal roof, the bed audio is rain hitting the roof, and you've got a metal roof, so you're going to hear that big time. So that's another thing, you hear it. And the reason it's placed there is I kind of wanted it to sound like the rain is coming down at an angle. If I had it on top, the roof will take the most brunt. I wanted it like it's also hitting the walls, so it's basically raised up and next to one of the walls, so it's like it's coming down at an angle from you. So that was my game. I hope that you enjoyed this video presentation of my game. I had great fun making this game. There were multiple issues that came up throughout the production process. I run on Apple Silicon, and in the first few weeks, the Oculus integration toolkit didn't work on Apple Silicon at all. Luckily, after a few weeks, Meta themselves released an Apple Silicon version, and then it started working. However, I then ran into an issue that the XR Origin unit itself didn't exist when I installed the XR Origin on the Silicon version of Unity. Luckily, through a lot of searching, found out a way to fix the issue and bring in that the XR Origin and get it up and running. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope you enjoyed my game, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Don't think I could take the pain. Won't you stay enough?